Memories are treasures. Lock the best of them in your mind forever, the most splendid moments, and those that are so grand they breathe a little magic. Well, those you need, but share upon the page. Any rogue can craft a spell, but it takes a really reckless fool to write one down. Who said that? Why, me, of course. It seems no other Magian mage on several worlds has wits enough to speak out against the flood of shrewd magic unleashed on us all. What one mage writes down, most others can read, so long as they say the pictures are plentiful enough. So, inevitably, spells of dangerous power spread throughout the known worlds. This perilous process has all too often been aided and abetted by folk so bereft of morals, or too fascinated to help themselves, as one once vainly tried to justify himself to me, that they publish such secrets of art openly, for any irresponsible hedge wizard with eyeballs to toy with. And now, look ye, that rascal, rogue, and pompous fool of a man, Gedarm, has been at it again, passing on precious lore, words I spoke in confidence, mind ye, to folk at Durnan's tavern, who've promptly verbalized it for all to hear. Has he no shame? Does he not for a moment think of the dragons that could be called down upon him? The flying castles crashing into what he's pleased to call his garden, the menacing doors that may leer up at him from his cellar, the creeping horrors that might snarl from the depths of his closet, the mind-rending horrors that'll doubtless soon inhabit his dirty linen basket. All this could have been avoided, of course, if he'd listened to me. He never does. They never do. None of them. If the handful of heedful folk in the worlds listened to me but a few moments more, much trouble could be averted, and I suppose much high adventure. Perhaps 'tis the doom of humans to always rush in, heedless of the costs, and to open and read every old, crumbling book they find. Certainly this book is full of the doings of too many wizards who do. How many wizards is too many? As the old mage's joke goes, two, because there's only one of me. But I digress. And all who read this will be amply equipped to repeat their mistakes. Just don't come ye wailing at my door when whatever world you've destroyed falls apart around ye. I'll be in bed with some good zur and my scrying crystal, watching ye and having a good laugh. Determined to read on? I can't blame ye, I suppose. I know I did. Every chance I got. From the slim black tome of Azuth, whose single page holds a different spell each time 'tis opened, to the belt of spells created by Sastam when he was young. Strings of coins hanging from a waistband, each string a single spell, written onto the faces of the coins. To the book, Anshala of Raurin, tattooed on the back of her largest manservant. I've read my share of Faerun's books of magic, and now ye can too, albeit a selection of tomes daring adventurers are more likely to find than honest folk. Honest folk? What am I saying? 'Tis wizards who'll be devouring every page of this work, seeking new spells to rule or remake their world with, of course. And all too soon, they'll turn from transforming mountains and say, more, more. These spells are old. Trade ye new spells for old. I've heard that very cry in the bazaars of Kalimshan, uttered by those who should have known better. Yet they did not, and fared forth in great peril of their lives to seek out more magics, in the tombs and vaults of wizards who were never human, and mages and masters alike who skulk in remote fastnesses of the realms. At least having such spells as these gave them some defense on such frights, as defenses ye now have too. So ye at the page, Mage Fair, where we can hurl a few fireballs together. A little spellfire, Scarecrow. Oh, sorry. It's all too easy to get carried away with magics such as these. Look ye, be careful. Have fun, but be careful. Ye hold here the power to change worlds. Elminster of Shadowdale. Chapter 1. A Touch of Magic. Ha! I would be remiss if I did not foretell the very nature of the schools before we start this journey into some of these famous works. Mind you, If I knew the location, I would simply round them up so their teaching could not do proper harm to the realms. That Volo has been trying to transcribe some of the work from these tomes into that preposterous book of his. Volo's guide to all things magical is of grave concern. Can you believe he is still bringing that to mages across the Sword Coast? I shudder to think of the damage he could cause. But ye did not come here for an old man to prattle on about one simple Volo. Ye all came here for magic. Although it's hardly a simple matter to wield the magic that will produce a blast of fire or slay a giant with a word. The highest form of the mage's art, according to the abjurist, lies at the place where magic interacts with magic. To study the school of abjuration is to wield spells that manipulate the fabric of arcane power itself. But ye must understand that a thought such as that will be countered by some mages who see it as too simplistic for their tastes. Conjuration. Have ye considered? The material plane is nothing but a small and unimportant crossroads in the cosmos. All that exists in this physical world is a mere reflection of the iconic truths embodied in the unseen worlds that border it. Many see this school as the true gateway to what wonders within the weave can be reached. Divination, though. My lady may smite me if I don't grace you with this third school. History is full of missed opportunities, personal tragedies, and kingdom-shattering defeats that might easily have been averted but for a single piece of information that could have changed the course of lives and worlds. Knowledge is power, and those who know all hold ultimate power in their hands. You can't disagree with that, can you? But some look inward rather than that of a grand scale. The mind is the ultimate power. Any fool can oppose an enemy by physical means, but to halt a foe through the sheer force of one's will, or to turn a most hateful enemy into a loyal ally, is the purest and most subtly effective manifestation of arcane might. I say, ye don't forget where your thoughts lay. Some would say, Elminster. What are you known for? Abjuration. Nay, it must be evocation. The universe is the interplay of impersonal forces, some spiritual, some political, some moral, some elemental, and some whose natures have yet to be revealed. Beneath the surface of the merely physical, fundamental energies form the true nature of all things. I once knew two brothers within Tarmaloon in a bear, a shop on Blackbanner's rise as it goes. What was it? Forgive me, the name often slips my mind. It's come back. I remember the smell. Daisies from the store next door. I remember the plaque had a certain promise given towards illusion. The universe is all in the mind that perceives it, and sensation is the first and only reality. If a tree falls in the forest with no creature to hear it, then there is no tree. Do you agree, colleagues? Now, I know what you may be thinking. The dark art. How could you, of all people who saved the realms 3 times over on a 10-day, give notion that this school is worth understanding? I would counter that thought with this motion of thought. A wise soul may peer into the abyss, not for admiration, but to learn where best to place the wards towards the shadow. Life and death are one, for all living things die in time. Death is not an ending, but a beginning. Since one's living days are but a fraction of the eternal existence of death, life is but a useless distraction to the study and understanding of the long darkness to come. Life and death are the twin faces of eternal existence. To surrender to either one is to resign oneself to obscurity. True power lies in the twilight zone between life and death. Let us note that all schools are useful to the balance of the weave. Change, the one constant upon mortal existence. Transmutation, like a reflection of the larger processes by which worlds are built and torn down once more. All life is change. Anything that has ceased to change, to grow, to evolve from what it was, ceases to be a part of the world. And the ultimate power is that which manipulates these forces of transmutation. The spellbooks described in the rest of this work are of exceptional nature. They often vary widely in content and appearance from the more typical spellbooks possessed by mages. The size of these rare books is usually measured in hands. A hand, or hand width, is about 3.5 inches, a measurement based on the size of the delicate hand of the scholar Alaric. Many of the new spellbooks are actually orisons. An orison is a jumble of spells of varying power, sometimes interspersed with spell research notes or other information, or even spells usable only by those whose power of arcane magic comes from a differing place, other than that of research. An arcanabulum is an illusionist's workbook or travelling spellbook, as opposed to the more complete spell tomes kept in secret by almost all spellcasters. Most arcanabula are nondescript, although illusionists in the realms have shown a talent for making theirs look like something else, such as a musical instrument, a gaming board, a belt of linked metal plates, and so on. Each mage in the realms has his own personal rune or symbol, which is used both to identify his own work and to protect his items, as with explosive runes. This sigil is unique for each active mage in the realms and remains with the particular caster until death. A wizard chooses a sigil as they grow in power. Long-lived wizards sometimes go through a number of sigils, but most stay with the first one they choose. A change often occurs as the wizard finds more powerful or robust sigils that amplify their growing talent. The inherent nature of the sigils themselves prevents accidentally copying another living wizard's sigil. Accidentally copying a dead wizard's sigil is another matter, but some liches have their own ideas about protecting their symbols. No two mage sigils are identical, and each is readily identifiable by its owner. Mage sigils can be reproduced by others to disseminate truthful information, such as, "This is the sigil of Elminster of Shadowdale." But a heavy curse is invoked against those who seek to use the sigils of others to their own ends, either with intent of counterfeiting, fraud, or mischief-making. Each wizard and each mage has their own method of delivery for what they wish to produce upon the threads of Mistra's weave, and if I were ye, I would listen for the remainder, as I now share tales of just a few spellbooks that have graced my path. Let us discuss the first book on our list, the Book of Shangala the Black. This is a tome of beaten electrum pages, stamped and etched with the runes of the spells set down within. The 4 pages are secured by small rings to covers of polished silver that have tarnished to a smoky black appearance. The name of Shangala is written in Thoras on the lower right corner of the front cover, and is the only lettering or adornment that the cover bears. The book is surprisingly heavy, but it is less than a finger thick, and its cover is 3 hand widths across by 7 hand widths in height. Shangala was a mage of Kalimshan, some 700 winters ago. Reclusive and secretive from the first, he gained experience and much treasure by exploring and pillaging ruins of the lost kingdoms of men, elves, and dwarves, making extensive use of animated undead servitors, summoned monsters, and charmed hirelings. Deeply paranoid, Shangala believed that every creature in the realms was out to get him, so he trusted no one and laid many elaborate plans, backup strategies, and double crosses to protect himself from betrayal. These undoubtedly saved his life on the several occasions when he did encounter deceit and treachery, but they won him no friends and caused many blameless individuals to be slain or ruined along the way. Shangala cared not. He rapidly grew in power and built himself a hidden keep somewhere in the northeast of Kalimshan, killing any who learned of its location or even its appearance. It remains hidden to this day, perhaps as the lair of a lich. All that is known to men is the suspicion, perhaps false, that it is an aerial dwelling, concealed amid mountain peaks. Shangala is known to have specialized in the dark arts and was once robbed by the master thief Athchos the Black while exploring a ruined desert city. Athchos emerged from Anarok with the book that bears Shangala's name, obviously a volume compiled by Shangala in his early researches. Athkos recited the book in Eriabor to a cabal of evil mages, led by All-Star Mir for copying. It is from their various records that Elminster knows the book's contents. Athkos then tried to lease the book to a mage in Elturel, but was slain by a swarm of hundreds of crawling claws. The book vanished in the attack, and it is widely believed that Shangalar was responsible, for he thereafter styled himself Shangalar the Black, thought to be a proud reference to his slaying of the notorious thief. Perhaps Shangalar did not regain the book, or perhaps he allowed it to pass into the hands of others for coin or for his own fell reasons, because the book turned up again in Neverwinter, where it was unmistakably described by Orgos, a minor sage. The book was promptly stolen by evil mages of Luskan or agents working for them, but it is believed to have since vanished again, and is being sought by those of Luskan who desire to retrieve it. The tomes, 4 pages each, contain a single spell dealing with the dead, undead, or necromancy. The book itself bears no alignment nor known traps, although Athkos spoke, perhaps falsely, of a poisoned clasp to deter theft by those to whom he lent it, and the spells it contains seem more protective than actively evil in nature. Chapter 2. The Sage of Shadowdale's Tome. Though Elminster has been known to create several spellbooks in the course of his long life, few have become available to adventurers. This is one that has, and some of Elminster's critics say this tome demonstrates the mage's sense of humour. Elminster denies this, however, claiming he would never allow most of these spells to become available to those stupid enough to misuse them. Since he has offered no explanation for the book's existence, some believe the spells were stolen from him and released to embarrass the Grand Sage. Fortunately for the thieves, he doesn't embarrass easily. The book is odd in several ways. First, it appears to be a block of white marble with light blue veins, a little more than a foot long on each side. However, it is relatively light, weighing only about 20 pounds. If a mage touches the uppermost surface of the block, brilliant green lettering appears, listing, in common, the spells that appear in the book. If the reader concentrates on one of the spell titles, the list of spells disappears and is replaced by the text of that spell, also in bright green lettering. The text remains in view so long as the mage continues to touch the block. If the mage stops touching the block, it is reset so that the next time it is touched, even if only a second later, the spell list appears again. The bottom of the block, whichever side happens to be downward at any given time, can sprout 4 legs of marble. Wondrous, isn't it? A book that can move. Once a mage has used the book, it tends to follow that person around, presumably so it can be used again. However, the book teleports to a new random location after several weeks, so any mage is well advised to copy the book's spells while he or she can. Though several sightings of the book have been reported from all over Faerun, and even Mastika and Karatur, it has never appeared in the same place twice. Chapter 3. Tomes of Liches. My, look at it, Darson's notes. How could these be laying around for any Crichton to spy onto? This simple tome has a binding of fine black leather with a silvery symbol, Darson's personal sigil, on the spine. The book is approximately a foot tall, 2/3 that in width, and perhaps an inch deep. Some 150 pages of fine, thin paper rest between the bindings. About half of those pages bear the writings of Darson, also known as the spellmaker of Raven's Bluff. Unlike many of the other books, libraries, and tomes described thus far, Darson's notes was penned by a mage who still lives, Darson Spellmaker. Darson is young, as mages go, having not yet passed 50 years. He was given the name Sen when he was born in Hal Ruar nearly a half-century ago, and he is the son of an elder of that nation, Dar Malson. Dar Malson travelled extensively in his youth, around Toril and to other worlds. Almost a century ago, he and his companions, a small group of other adventuring wizards, formed a guild and settled in the town of Northbank, on a world other than Toril. The guild thrived for more than a decade until a dark necromancer named Kiristan joined. With his skill and power, the newcomer quickly ascended to the seat of guild master. Kiristan wanted to become a lich and began experimenting on guild members. He was discovered and exposed by Dar Malson, but the guild fell apart. The rest of the guild members left and Dar remained in Northbank, slowly growing bitter, as well as disdainful of other people. Eventually, nearly 3 decades after the founding of his guild, Dar was able to exact a small amount of revenge against Kiristan, helping to stop an evil plot put into motion by that power-hungry mage who had achieved his goal of lichdom. Tired of living a life alone, Dar decided to return to Toril and to Halruar. He was also able to convince a pretty young mage, Kitta Dorf, to accompany him as his wife. Once back in Halruar, Dar Malson and Kitta reclaimed Dar's family estates, which had fallen into disrepair during his decades-long absence. The couple was happy at first, but their passions soon moved them in different directions. Kitta, though she wanted to learn more about magic, also enjoyed life and continually tried to get Dar to enjoy himself. Dar delved into more and more arcane researches, retreating from his wife and the life she offered him. The details are unclear, but Dar began researching some form of forbidden magic, possibly ancient Netherese spells. It is rumoured he also trafficked with the Red Wizards of Thay, seeking ever more twisted spells and magical items. Even the birth of his son, Sen Darson, failed to attract much of his attention. Not long after the birth of Sen, word of Dar's depredations reached the other elders of Halruar. Other mages confronted Dar, who rebuffed them. Eventually, several Halruan wizards banded together to put an end to what they regarded as perversions. A great battle was fought, and while Dar used magic long forgotten, he eventually fell to the combined might of the other elders. Kitta also perished, but Sen survived and was taken in by one of the attacking wizards, a middle-aged woman named Fodas. For several years, Sen was raised in ignorance of his heritage. He knew simply that his parents had died when he was an infant. However, when he reached the age of 13 and finished basic Halruan schooling, Sen was told of his family background by his adoptive mother. During the next few years, Sen studied magic, but he also researched his family background. He blamed Kiristan and, by extension, necromancy in general, for the madness that seemed to have affected his father, but he also became increasingly disillusioned with the paranoid nature of Halruar. Sen developed his own ideas about magic, but these were suppressed by his mentors and teachers in favor of the right way of performing magic. Still, Sen persisted, and he eventually decided that the paranoid, repressive atmosphere of Halruar, which had led to the death of his father for unacceptable research, was counterproductive. At the age of 20, Sen formally adopted the name Darson to honor his father, and he left Halruar, never to return. Since leaving Halruar, Darson has studied magic a great deal. He is open to many ideas and enjoys researching magical spells, specializing to create focused spells more on the often sparse evidence about them. He considers himself not only a researcher, but almost an archaeologist of magic. Darson currently resides near the city of Raven's Bluff on the Dragon Reach. Residents of that city gave him the nickname Spellmaker more than a decade ago, and it has stuck rather firmly. Chapter 4. Good and Evil. Now, good and evil. You may expect me to speak in somewhat of an absolutist viewpoint. Why? That I follow the path of the righteous, that Mystra's divine pursuits always happen upon the nature of the path towards the common person's benefit. It seems you would be mistaken if you followed that thread of thought. This perilous pursuit towards the absolutes of mortality will never be decided. I fear there will always be a pull towards both the Celestials in Mount Celestia and those devils within the 9 hells who embody the forces of extremes. Then there are those who thread a parallaxal path, whereby they thread the lilies of betterment, or those who pivot towards their own ambitions. I would be irresponsible if I did not somewhat mention the 2 books who share an antithesis towards one another. I can't blame ye if you already have somewhat of an understanding from my previous work, for you wouldn't be a very ample scholar if ye did not. So, let me read from the pages of the Book of Exalted Deeds and from the Book of Vile Darkness to reflect. Now, if ye are wondering how I came across these passages, well, that is a story for another day. Many beings are quick to recite the unkindly deeds they have performed, the darkness they commit when no soul observes, or the laws they have technically obeyed in the pursuit of their own ambition, as though these alone prove they are touched by evil and deserve its power. Yet the occasional performance of evil does not make one evil. It may make one useful, respectable, charming, or merely wealthy to their own betterment. However, to gain evil's boons, evil requires a certain corruption of temperament, the presence of vices that drive a being not merely to fail at goodness, but to diminish it. Evil implies selfishness, contempt for life, and a disregard for the dignity of sentient beings. Those who are evil make others suffer for their own gain, pleasure, pride, fear, or ambition. Evil is not rudeness, cruelty of speech, vulgarity, anger, ambition, cynicism, or disobedience, though evil beings may wear any of those faces. Evil is the dreadful profane force that rises from the lower planes and seeks to stain, break, or devour what is good. Evil is selfish, unjust, despairing, malicious, and corrupting, as opposed to evil, what is good. Many beings are happy to rattle off long lists of sins they haven't committed as evidence that they are good. The utter avoidance of evil, however, doesn't make them good, solidly neutral perhaps, but not good. Being good requires a certain quality of temperament, the presence of virtues that spur a being, not just to avoid evil in appearance, but to actively promote good. Good implies altruism, respect for life, and a concern for the dignity of sentient beings. Those who are good make personal sacrifices to help others. Good is not nice, polite, well-mannered, prudish, self-righteous, or naive, though good-aligned beings might be some of those things. Good is the awesome holy energy that radiates from the celestial planes and crushes evil. Good is selfless, just, hopeful, benevolent, and righteous. Now where you stand upon these 2 reflections is your path, and I would say I have charted down the path of compassion more often, but your path, that is for you to tread. Now, scholar of the art, let your friend from Shadowdale read you 3 passages that sheds more detail on the nature of evil and good. The line between hero and villain is so faint, it might as well not be there at all. Disagree? Consider this. A group breaks into a residence, kills everyone inside, and then makes off with anything of value. Robbers sacking a roadside cottage are named villains for such a deed, yet adventurers who storm a goblin warren and do the same are dubbed heroes. The difference? You tell me, because I cannot see it. Chilling, if I do say, myself, and I do. Now, from the god of occult lore within Earth. Through my many adventures, I have had cause to interact with creatures most profane, and these encounters have taken place in some of the most desperate and alarming environments. I have peered into the abyss and evaded demons thirsting for my blood and slavering for my flesh. I have walked the Old One's gallery and gazed at the walls, lined with skulls of those he had slain during his rise to power. I have witnessed the fiery 9 hells, glimpsed the impossible vistas of the far realm, and descended into the lower planes to wage war against chaos itself. Each time, I was astonished by the sheer diversity of those that mortals have deemed evil, and delighted in the sheer ingenuity displayed in their myriad horrible forms. Truly, while this book has proved invaluable in my own efforts to ensnare gods beneath my fabulous abode, to say nothing of my magical research, I fear it cannot do justice in describing the extent to which shadow truly darkens the world. My next passage should make you question your very thoughts upon the nature of the two. You may be asking why Elminster is understanding good and evil alongside the teaching of the two tomes. In your own time, mind you, true learning happens behind the curtain now. Why is it so important? To understand the cosmos and its very pull is the foundational basis upon what all material worlds and the planes themselves lean upon. I will not deny we instinctively find certain actions distasteful, yet our abhorrence does not make these actions evil. Rather, it signals some instinctive quality, some unconscious recognition of wrongness. The wrongness is not a byproduct of idealized good or evil. Instead, it is our recognition that a certain agency is at work in the cosmos. Notions about good and evil are mortal definitions for what is the absence and presence of this agency. We define actions as good or evil based on how a particular choice impacts our moral sensibilities. Such thoughts are useful for building stable and peaceful societies, if that end is to be desired. But to apply these concepts to, for lack of a better term, vile darkness is inaccurate. I will leave you with one more thought before you tell a lie. Strike a soul where you think they deserve, or steal from a poor soul. The most fearsome monster I ever saw had 2 arms, 2 legs, and 1 head. And on its head was a face with 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 nose, and 1 mouth. And above this face grew a mop of hair. Everywhere else, the creature's flesh was mostly pink and bare. Mostly makes my insides crawl thinking about it. There are countless tomes in the world, some powerful, some divine, others despicable. But no matter the subject, all teaching is beneficial in understanding oneself and the greater world around. So grab that tome that reeks of decay, hold that book whose neat pages you're afraid to crease. But remember always, memories are treasures. Lock the best of them in your mind forever, the most splendid moments, and those that are so grand they breathe a little magic. Well, those you need to share upon the page.